10 income streams of the ALP system. Remember, in the earlier training, we discussed the importance of multiple streams of income. In this chapter, we are going to discuss the 10 income streams of the health system. The exciting thing about the health system real estate is that the health system is still the best, even when profitability is not the investor's sole or primary focus. The health system creates multiple streams of income from each investment, make it more stable, reliable, and profitable than any other real estate strategy. This is because the system offers 10 profit centers, whereas the others only provide 1 or 2. The 10 income streams include discount or walk-in equity, number 2 cash flow, number 3 big down payment, number 4 appreciation, number 5 principal paydown, number 6 saving on repairs and maintenance, number 7 additional rent, number 8 tax benefit, 9 smaller investment by the investor, number 10 lower closing costs. Number 1, the discount or walk-in equity. Discount or walk-in equity is defined as a difference between the home's market price and its purchase. Our system helps us secure properties with 15% or more discount. According to the size of the house and the selling price, you may make more money in one deal or one purchase than you made all year around working in your current job. For example, if your home is worth $300,000, which is very low, and you can purchase at a 15% discount, which is for $255,000, you will make $45,000 on that purchase alone. Remember, the secret to finding the discounted or walk-in equity is not buying distressed properties. We are not looking for distressed property. We are combining overspeed with distressed sellers. When there's a distressed seller in the market, they are not caring much about how much do they get out of the deal. For example, if they're going through divorce, if they're going through bankruptcy or foreclosure or any other emergency that they have in their life, time is of essence, and if we are able to crunch the time, close the deal fast, give them a fast exit out of the deal, we're able to secure those properties at a big discount. Remember, the key here is not the distressed property, it's the distressed owner. It's the distressed situation that we are looking for, and we combine it with our speed in closing because we know the market very well. We are the experts in that particular market, and because we are able to give the seller a quick closing than any other buyer. Remember, we are solving the problem of a distressed seller. We are giving them a quick exit in the shortest period of time, and that's what they are looking for. Number 2, cash flow. The difference between the monthly rent you receive and the monthly mortgage you pay is your cash flow. In short, it's the difference between your mortgage payments and expenses and your income that you receive as a landlord. Number 3, the down payment. The technical term for this is the option consideration, which is a fee paid by the tenant to secure the option to purchase the house within the specific period of time. This option is non-refundable. We normally receive a minimum $20,000 down payment per house in Canada, and this down payment is non-refundable. It is considered as a down payment for the future purchase when they purchase the house. The numbers on the US side vary a bit. It's normally around $10,000. We have received the option consideration from $20,000 up to $80,000 even. Depending on the house and the client, we'll show you in the ELK system how to secure bigger down payment using the ELK system. Bigger down payment from the tenant buyer will give you the investor bigger security. It lowers your risk in the investment and it improves your return as you are investing less of your own money in the deal. Don't forget, this is very different from the normal rent to own or lease options. We are considerate of the client, the tenant buyer, and they equally win by paying a bigger down payment. Number 4, appreciation. The appreciation is the increase in value of the property over time due to the increased demand. What is notable about the ALP system real estate, we do not rely on it to turn a profit. We do take into account when it occurs. The average appreciation in the markets that we operate is between 3 to 10% depending on the market you are in. Since we are the specialists in finding high growth markets which are not dependent on one industry and are on the path to growth, our average investor sees around 6% growth in appreciations. The ALP contracts are very different from what is on the market. The ALP contracts always take into consideration the tenant buyer and their interests. Normal contracts on the market are locked contracts for 3 years or 4 years. The ALPs, on the other hand, are totally different. ALP contracts are open contracts for 3 years, which gives the tenant buyer a possibility of improving their credit score and buying the property in advance without any penalties. This gives the tenant buyer a lot of incentive and fairness and flexibility in purchasing the property. The normal ALP contract is for 3 years, which gives the average investor around 15 to 18% return on the property. The ALP system is designed very different from all other rent-to-own or lease option systems on the market. The ALP system is based on fair and made with a win-win mentality. So let's look at an example. If the down payment is 5%, a 6% appreciation is added, and then the split is done between the appreciation and the value. So for example, let's say in the recent year, the market was in Toronto areas increasing around 10%. So if the tenant buyer paid 5% down payment, a 6% appreciation would be added. And let's say the market increased by 10%, the difference will be split 50 to 50 between the tenant and the investor. This gives the tenant a lot of incentive because in no other system tenants' interests are taken into consideration. This way the tenant is able to enjoy the party appreciation. If the tenant pays a 10% down payment, now he has an incentive to pay a down payment, then only 5% appreciation is added and the split between the investor and tenant is 40-60. Which means now the tenant will make 60% of the profit out of appreciation. And if the tenant pays 15% down, I know these are rare cases, but they do happen. We'll show you how to get such deals where the tenant is paying 10, 15, even 20%. Then the appreciation is 4% and the split is 30-70. When the tenant is paying 20%, the appreciation is only 3%, and the split is 20-80 in favor of the tenant. You might be wondering, why would a tenant pay 20% or 10% or 15% down pay instead of buying the property themselves? There are a lot of cases when this happens. Those cases are, for example, the client is going through divorce and they don't want to buy the property right now on their name, and they have already, let's say, booked a condo or booked a house with the builder, and they have no choice but to purchase that. So if they purchase in their name, they are on the hook because they're going through the divorce. But if they do a rent-to-own agreement, they are not on the hook. So it provides them with an exit out of their problem. The other cases are when the client has some liens or has some problems or some other things going on in their life that they don't want to own the property, but they already are committed in some kind of contract with the builder. So they have no choice but to do this way. The other cases might be where the tenant buyer has a sudden dip in their credit score and now they have only 10% down payment and they don't qualify for a mortgage to purchase the property. And if they pay less than 20% down payment, they will have to pay CMC fee, which can range from 3 to 8% depending on which area they are creating in. They're buying the property in Canada, so that can vary. So if they don't have enough down payment, they might lose the down payment that they have already given to the builder. So this ALP situation gives them the opportunity to grab back not only the deposit that they have already given to the builder or given to the seller, and at the same time gain a share of the appreciation in the market, which will happen if they continue to own or become a part of the ALP system as. So this is more of a partnership concept where we are splitting the profits in the appreciation with the tenant buyer. So this guarantees us a few things. Number one thing is guarantees us full cooperation from the tenant buyer because we are helping them out of their hard situation. They are borrowing our resource, which can be excellent credit score, which they don't have to save themselves. We recently did a deal with our investor student where the tenant paid 20% down payment and the tenant had no choice because he was going to lose the 20% down payment which he has given to the builder to purchase the property. But because the tenant buyer had just recently lost the job in COVID, they had no choice and no option because they were not in a situation where they would be able to purchase the property themselves. We did the deal in such a way where we considered out of his 20%, 15% as the down payment, and the 5% was considered as the prepayment for his rental payments. So this gave the tenant buyer a very good contract. Not only they were able to save what was already saved in the market, they did not have to make monthly payment for a few months, and they did not have to lose the property and lose their hard-earned down payment. So this was a win-win situation. The investor buyer did not have to put too much of their own money into they had put only 5% and they secured this deal. And this was a very safe deal for both parties because both of them were winners in this case. Principal pay down. With the payment of mortgage each month, the investor accumulates more and more equity in the property. The more and more principal is being paid down each month. The longer the tenant buyer stays in the property, the more principal gets paid down and more profit the investor makes. The better the credit score of the investor, the lower the interest rate for the mortgage, and the bigger the principal pay down is going to be, as the interest portion is going to be less. Saving on repairs and maintenance. Under the ALP system, the tenant buyer gets the home inspection done before agreeing and is responsible for all the repairs and maintenance that are generally under the first $500. This saves the investor a lot of money as the tenant takes over the investor's responsibility. The tenant pays the first $500 for any significant repairs, which is normally the insurance deduction fee, and the rest is covered through the home insurance. Additional rent. To help the tenant buyer save and accumulate enough down payment, the tenant buyer agrees to pay the additional rent, which ranges from anywhere from $200 to $1,000 normally. This becomes the additional cash flow for the investor under the ALP system, which is very different from the normal rent to own and lease option strategy, where the tenant pays, let's say, $200 that's saved as the additional rent and as added to the deposits, and some companies may allow a certain amount bonus as a reward. Under the ALP system, the calculations are done with the end in mind, and let's say the tenant buyer pays 5% down payment and needs another 5 to have a total of 10 to qualify for a mortgage. Let's take an example. If the tenant just pays a 5% and needs another 5 plus the closing cost. So under the ALP system, we make sure that the tenant will be able to save enough additional rent each month. Detailed calculation is done to make sure that the tenant buyer will end up saving enough money to have enough down payment to purchase the property. Detailed scenarios will be discussed in the coming trainings. Tax benefits. Tax laws allow homeowners to deduct mortgage interest from their taxes in the US. Unfortunately, this tax benefit is not available in Canada. Houses sold under the ALP system do qualify for capital gains instead of the trading tax. Under fix and flip strategy, this is a massive advantage in the ALP system real estate, since the goal is to purchase as many houses as possible. With the fixed upper strategy, the investor will receive their first profit once they flip the house if they are lucky. But they have no cash flow. They don't have big down payments, and the realtor commission and closing costs and taxes often wipe out any earnings. With rentals, the investors enjoy tax benefits and sometimes benefit of property appreciations. However, they receive no down payment, and they are lucky if they have good deal up front and receive some cash flow. Once again, the ALP system offers investors the most benefits and 10 income streams. Number 9, smaller investment by the investor. As we take under the ALP system only qualified buyers, typically the tenant buyers pay at least $20,000 deposit. This lowers the down payment that the investor has to invest, and we have seen cases where the client has paid $50,000, $60,000 or even $80,000 as the down payment. So the investor commitment in those cases is very low and the return is very high. Lower closing costs. Under the ALP system, the tenant buyer pays back the closing costs when the tenant buyer chooses the property as the investor is buying for the tenant buyer this property. So the tenant buyer is responsible for all inspections, appraisals, and closing costs. Investment analysis questions. How much profit can I create from this investment? Am I benefiting from many profit centers or many incomes of streams as well? Am I missing out on other potential sources of profitability? Is the amount of time, effort, and risk involved? How sure is my profit from this deal even if the market drops? Am I ethically driving the profits? Do I have a system in place to create sustainable, consistent, predictable profits, or is it a one-time strategy?